All right, how y'all doing this evening? Hold on, wait a minute. How are y'all this evening? All right, so what we got here, I've got a Dodge that I've gotten painted. I didn't like how it came out. The base coat had some heavy metallic in it. Not sure, it was a mix-up. Anyways, we worked with it. Got to wet sand it down. Those 2 coats clear. All body worked. Looks really nice. Just has that little bit of texture. So all we're doing around the whole truck is I chose 600. I feel like I get a better bite. Rub over it with a gray Scotch Brite, which is supposed to be the equivalent of 800. So I've already sprayed it down with wax and grease remover to verify that, you know, everything looks as it should. And sometimes you can get stuff show up. I may end up with some sand and scratches, but this clear build's pretty good, so still have to do the center of the hood. And as you can see, a little cold in here when I had sprayed it. Oh, come on, focus. There we go. It was a little cold in here when I sprayed it, so it did die back just a little bit. So all we're gonna do is wet sand that, and we're gonna do what I refer to as a flow coat. Still gotta wipe it down again, but this was just temporary. My gun was not as clean as it should have been for my clear, which is an Iwata LPH 400 LV. It's a 1.3 orange cap, very nice spraying gun, very well money spent. But I did have it spraying high on the top pattern, so I had hung a run on this fender and over there on that way. But as a friend of mine said, even Picasso signed his work. So it's been about 4 years since I ran anything when I was doing this. My heater. And the shop is cluttered. It's a bit of a mess, but I'm slowly working on getting it going. I'll either run kerosene or I'll run wood stove. But back to this. This is a 2001 Dodge Ram. Supposed to be a scuff and shoot, but went through and we put a roof skin on it. I can go back and show all the panels in the process and stuff like that if I need to. Gas door still needs to be wet sanded. Of course, this needs to be wiped off. But one of the important things that I wanted to show you, if you are at this position and you are at this point and you are wet sanding and buffing, see, I've done, you know, it's all bagged. If you are wet sanding, you are buffing, consider, if you're painting it yourself, consider wet sanding and then putting another coat of clear coat on it. Typically what I've done here is I've pulled any kind of texture out of the clear coat. Sometimes that does happen. I did use a high build sealer, Tamco 5300 series primer to a sealer. Very nice, lays on nice, still has a slight bit of texture. We did kind of any of you remember Earl Shive. You take all the paint from the month and you throw it all into a vat, and he'd do a $99 a month, $99 paint job. You prep it, bring it, we spray it, 99 bucks. Of course, my mixing table is cluttered. I do apologize. This was an all-nighter. We went with a blue, really nice, darker blue. And then the guy's like, you know, I see it on there now. What about a pearl? And of course, you can see where those little metallics are standing up. And anybody that's ever done like a bass boat flake understands what that is. So all I'm doing is cutting the top off, I'm cutting the peel out, and I'm cutting any nibs that I had in there out. Any trash that was in it, I'm cutting out. And there wasn't much here and there, but again, it was a 6 or 7 hour ordeal with the temperatures and stuff, and I have not completely gotten those out of there, so we're going to continue to get those out. What I do want to point out here is if you get to this point, even if you're wet sanding and buffing, and you're not wet sanding to re-clear or do a flow coat, this right here is from me wet sanding the top side there. And what has happened here is that's sanding material that has actually dried up on the panel. And the first thing you're going to want to do is try to scratch it off, and you don't want to do that. All you need to do is go right back over it with a little bit of a Scotch Brite, or if you've got some 1,000, 1,200, 1,500 out, go out and rub over that. Sometimes the water will pull it off, but we call that soap staining. This is why you do not wash prep one with anything solvent based if you're going to be in the sun without doing a final wash with Dawn and water and making sure that you get it dried off quite quickly. So we did put 2 coats of clear of amethyst pearl on this. I think it'll look really nice. Of course, this side has been exposed to the heater, so the bed is cured at a different rate than the front end was, unfortunately. Of course, I will wet the floors down in here when I re-clear, and I'll blow everything out. But at first, I had this set up where the paper was down to the floor, and it's masked and taped down everywhere. I still have not untaped it. I've gone through and I've wet sanded. I'm going to leave it taped up and just tack rag my paper and everything in the surrounding, and I'm going to go to town with it. One thing that I do with my heaters, especially when I'm painting, a lot of people don't advise this, but me personally, I run off-road red fuel, and I don't have any fumes. I don't have any problems with solvent pop. I don't have any issues like that unless the temperature is too hot for the reducer or the activator that I'm using. But had one of these for a long time, and up on the wall, yes, I've got extension cords and I've got stuff everywhere. But it's the shop where it is right now, and sometimes I'm working so much I don't have time to clean up in here. So my remote right here, you see me painting, reach for my back pocket. Button number 1 turns that heater on, of course shuts it off. Button number 3, I don't know where module number 2 is, turns my fan on. And yes, my fans do blow inside. I hardly run the upper fan. And of course right now I had to do some moving around and rearranging, so there's some stuff up there. I've got screens on both sides. I got screens on the back side, so it keeps the majority of dust out. I don't ever run the big fan when I'm painting, the up top fan, but I do run this one. My door, I mainly crack it, hang some filters underneath it, and go for it. But what I wanted to show today was just a little bit of what I'm doing here. Maybe talk to you a little bit about what I'll be doing sooner, and hopefully doing more videos. I've got a 79 Mustang to get in here. I've got a 62 Cadillac 62 series convertible to bring in here. Another friend has a 64.5 Mustang. I've got quite a few that people want in. I just have to get stuff done fast enough to, keep going. So all I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna set up, that way you can see me. I can't tell exactly where I am, but this is as high as my current stand will go, and we'll just go from there. All right, so there we go. So typically I don't go this far with cars, trucks, paint jobs. Either it's requested, or in this case, the truck has been here for quite a while. And kind of became monotonous just to look at it. All I do is I throw some on there, and I'll throw some on here. And all I'm going to do is, you'll notice I'm not moving that bed. I'm not digging in, and it is literally just my fingertips holding the corner of that block, and that's it. And I'll do my first pass this way. Sometimes I alternate depending on where I'm at, depending on how I feel. But you don't want to dig too hard, and you can, if I can break the camera around here, you can see it. You can see as I sand that these nibs go away. And as I get done with this point, I will move to the next. I'll grab the camera, and then we'll go from there. That way you can see this in action. It's better to see it, in my opinion, than to be told what to do. You can watch me while you do the same. Maybe I can help you. So I'm going to get to this point, midway over the wheel arch. That way I've got a reference point. I know where I'm at. I know how to keep the same pattern as I go. This is a big thing with this, because you do have some of these lines show back up. You do have some of this show up as a grain in the paint. Sometimes it gives a naturally cut and buff look without having to cut and buff it. My goal here is to soak the whole shop down, spray it, and I have great outcomes this way. Yes, a booth is very convenient. A paint booth is extremely convenient. Bake it even down to a dust-free condition or a low dust condition. You're going to have dust even in a paint booth. No matter how much you keep it clean, you're going to have dust somewhere on you, on your clothing, on your paint suit, on your respirator, in your hair, on your arms. My biggest battle, literally, is them jokers right there. That is my biggest battle. So I paint in a hoodie, I tack myself off, and do my best not to lean into anything. The biggest thing is to be patient. You have to be patient. You're not going to get this done in 2 or 3 hours if you don't want to do more work. So all I've done is I've come in, and you can see that little buddy right there, and then you can see the little bit of texture that's in here. And in all actuality, that's a lot of texture, but if I were to take it outside, you wouldn't see half of it. A painter will, but there's about 7 coats of base coat, medium coats. It took a lot to cover with this color. And then 2 more coats of clear base coat, a light scuff off, and then came back with 2 more coats of clear base coat with an amethyst pearl in it, and let that flash off, and then it was a clear coat time. So there is a lot of material on here. I'd assume still within spec. PPG doesn't like any more than, I think it's like 10 mil, and I could be right at that limit. But here's what I want to show you. I'm gonna pick a good point, and this is where that flake was. That's why all the raised dimples are there. Now you don't want to cut too hard because you don't want to break open the pores of where that metal flake is. So I'm trying to get close but not make you dizzy, because I can see it as I make passes. If you can see right here, that darker seaming spot every time I make a pass. All right, you want to do that until it goes away, but you want to stop. Now I know what I'm doing here at the corners. I know how much paint I have on the truck, but what you want to do is get as much of that out that you're going to have in your face as possible. Sometimes I'll just stop at a midline here where your eyes don't really go when you're looking at a vehicle. But on this one, the owner is going to put this truck back together. He's going to have glass put back in it. He's going to do everything. He's going to see every inch of this truck. So I have gone down and I have made sure I've gotten everything on the bottom side. Everything on the bottom side. And it's just as to make it as nice as possible. So another reason I did this is with the colder temperatures, the clear coat tends to blush if it does not have enough time. And of course I did not stay in here to babysit with my heaters after 3 o'clock in the morning, after already sitting for 3 hours. I checked it at my tape, it seemed fine. It was still a little soft the next morning. I fired the heaters, ran them, and of course started breaking it open to let it air out and gas out. That's another good thing about this. If you do this over the course of a day or two, especially pick where you know it didn't dry or harden as fast as the other, and you ultimately get down to a point where you can work your way back here, and by the time you wet sand this, I can't smell this coming out like I smelled the front end earlier. So you will still smell this clear coat. When you smell it, don't freak out, but always pay attention. I will take you to one spot where I broke through, and if it wasn't where it was, I would already have touched it up with some pearl and went on. But that's a dangerous situation. So I'm gonna get done with this, and then we'll walk over there and I'll show you what happens if you're not careful. Now, I'm not sure why the clear was as thin as it was, where it was, because I didn't break through anywhere else, and of course I didn't really exactly put any more pressure anywhere else. But in this case, I can smell a little bit here. I can smell it as I break it open, but that's all right. It'll be another hour or two before I spray this truck. If not, I'll wait till in the morning. The only reason I want to do it now is because it's cool enough outside where there's no flying things like have been in here for a little while. So what we'll do is I'll wipe this off and try to work in little sections, because if you don't, you got soap staining and you got more to do. Soap staining will mess you over because you'll wipe it down and you won't think it's there, and then you get the clear coat on it, and as soon as you're spraying it down, you'll see those edges. And then you'll rush to try to fix it. And there's no fixing it. You might as well just throw a little more clear in that spot, wait a little extra longer in the flash time, and then come back and continue with your full wet coat. I already painted the bed and the roof of the cab and the back of the cab and all that stuff when I did the jams. This truck was originally silver, believe it or not. But we're gonna go right up here underneath where the mirror is on the driver door. And you'll be able to see the difference from the entire truck and that one spot. And that's where I rubbed through the top of the clear, and I just barely scraped over a bit of the pearl coat. So I'm not sure why I was so thin there on clear coat or what, or if I got a little rough, but if it wasn't for the mirror being right here, it's gonna shadow it. You're not really gonna see that unless you're underneath it, or unless you're looking dead at it after I paint it. And another way of showing you this, of what will come of this, what will be seen, is gonna be this right here. And I use it's wax and grease remover, that's it. You can actually see the difference where I broke through, and that's a slightly different color. Now, hopefully that doesn't upset my material when I start spraying clear on and have a draw up. Sometimes that'll happen, sometimes it won't. You always try not to break through anywhere whenever you're doing something like this. I call this wet sanding your clear. Many people, your shows will call it color sanding. And I have even recently heard of some guys getting their primer on and getting it where they think it's ready to spray, and then they'll spray it with 2 coats of clear coat, and they'll come back and block that to see how close they were. Now, I've never done that, but I've definitely heard of that. But the biggest thing I wanted to show is that this isn't that difficult. The biggest difficulty today with painting a vehicle is the cost of the material. Whereas I charged set amount in the course of time that the truck's been here, material has nearly doubled. I don't do this to make a killing. I make a living, and I make a living doing a hobby that I like to do. Something that my dad did. It's been gone for about 4 years now, and ever since I was a kid, I can remember going to the body shop. 3.5 years old, smelling lacquer, always remembering the smell. I'm an 80s baby. I'm a 90s kid, but an 80s baby. I can always remember that smell. And first time I ever picked up a paint coat was, I believe that was 2009, 2010. It was a silver 2001 Altima. Front end hit, put a fender on it, hood, sprayed it outside, under carport, at my buddy's shop, in the rain. It was raining outside. Actually, that was, in my opinion, silver is one of the most finicky colors, especially in any kind of humid situation. It tends to blush out real bad, which it can haze. Any color can do that. Black is most noticeable, actually. But it came out really nice. Very nice. From that point on, I was like, heck, I got this down pat. And even though I didn't, it didn't stop me from learning the correct way to do things. And although my correct way of doing things may be a lot more different and a lot more involved and a lot more tedious, because let's just admit it, I look at this more of an art than anything else. So to me, it's about perfection. My name is on this. I don't look at this as work. I look at it as I don't have the words for that right now. I look at this as something different than work. Each one will pay enough to take care of the bills. You know, we always want more. Sometimes, another one my dad used to say, less is more. Sometimes less is more. You may see a bunch of junk laying around here, but I can tell you where each piece of junk and what each piece of junk is. I am working on being a better organized person. But this takes time. Change takes time. Sometimes doing something the right way takes time. Shortcuts are great. You get the final result, but with a little more time, a little more effort, a little more elbow grease, and just a little bit of patience, you can double your outcome and be a lot happier with it. Knowing that your paint's going to stick, knowing that the appearance is as nice as it could be for whatever the job is worth or whatever the product is worth. You know, I've seen SEMA cars sprayed in garages. I've seen Hot Rod magazine cars built in somebody's, attached garage to their house in their HOA neighborhood. You know, this is something that, whether you're doing it for work, whether you're doing it because you want to, or like me, you're an enthusiast and you want to keep them around. You know, to me, this is saving them. It's keeping them, giving somebody something that they'll want to take care of. You know, I don't know about you guys, but I know the truck market's crazy today. The gentleman that I'm doing this for, he buys these trucks. And I'm going to keep this wet for a second because I don't want it soap stained. The gentleman I'm doing this truck for, it's how he makes his living. He builds and sells Dodge Rams. Only second-gen Dodges. His name is Dante. He's out of Concord, North Carolina. You can find him on Craigslist. Find him on Marketplace, I think. Really great guy. Great parts. The prices are conducive of the parts for these trucks. And here in North Carolina, the parts for these trucks have become hard to find and scarce. And then up north, these trucks are very common on the road. So many of you that might be watching this and you own a second-gen Dodge Ram, and you live in the northern states and it's hard for you to find them, follow my advice. Find Dante on Craigslist in Charlotte, North Carolina or Concord, North Carolina, and get a hold of him. He's got cabs, he's got fenders, he's got all kinds of stuff. Very reasonable on prices. He deals in the diesels as well. So anything second gen. His wife covers the third gens. And they're great people. They're phenomenal people. And very patient. So definitely check them out. And if you're enjoying what you like and you want to see more, tell me what you want to see. What's coming is 62 Cadillac convertibles coming in. It's merely getting some body work done. The top side's actually really solid. We're going to have to do a rocker and a floor pan patch. We're also probably going to have to do lower door patches and then lower quarter patches. and a few other little things, but other than that, the car is actually in really good shape. Still have to remove the bumpers. There'll be quite a few things that have to be removed that were not removed by the beginning. That needs to come later. So it's when it came here, when it got to me, it was coming from another shop, and I think they realized there was a little more to it than they thought. And sometimes when you're in this and you get a hold of something that's, you get into it and you're like, oh man, I wasn't expecting this. It's a learning curve. You always got to expect the worst. Hope for the best and expect the worst. That's why I let all my people know. If somebody brings me something, if somebody wants me to paint something, if somebody wants me to fix it, look at it, whatever, I tell them, look it over real good, walk a magnet down through it. If the magnet doesn't stick, you need to figure out why. Most of the time that means filler, it could mean an aluminum panel, it could mean anything. Most of the time it's a lot of filler that'll keep a magnet from sticking, depending on your magnet. Your common pin magnet, pocket magnet that goes in there, it looks like it's got a flathead screwdriver on it, that type of deal. If that one won't stick to it, you probably got more than spec at 1/4 inch of filler. That's all most of your companies want on there. So if there's more than 1/4 inch on it, most likely the magnet won't stick. But, other than that, I always get people to send me pictures of it from the side. Always from the side. I want to see down the side of the car. I want to know what I'm getting into if somebody's going to ask me over the phone instead of bringing it to me. I'm not against it, but sometimes I'd rather just, hey, bring it by, stop by the shop. So, that being said, this one, I went and looked at it, gave him a price, he was good with it, and what's the time frame didn't stay on point, but we're working on that and we're making good on it. This is why I'm doing a little bit of extra to give him a really nice paint job for the time that he's waiting. Truck market's up, so he might get lucky and get a pretty good penny out of this truck. It is a really nice truck. He did put a frame underneath it. I guess the old frame had some slag or whatever, although it may have just been cracked up on the front from the typical steering box issues. But he put another frame under it. He puts brand new components in the dash, new heater core, new heater core, new evaporator. He does a new upper dash. If he has to put a lower dash in it, he does. So when you get a truck from this guy, you actually get nearly a brand new truck. He makes sure everything mechanically is in good shape. So I knew for him to get the most money out of a gas burner, this is a 5.9 360 gas motor. After he's seen the paint job, he's considering whether or not to put a hotter motor in it and change the wheels and maybe try to go for that big dollar sell. So my job was to put a nice paint job on it and make it look pretty, and that's what we're doing. So I'm going to continue sanding here. You can feel free to fast forward. I can't tell you where to fast forward to, but I figured I'd record this process. That way you can see how long it takes. This is, by the way, this is from, the sandpaper's from Amazon. It's wet or dry 320, comes in 20 sheet packs. I think it was like $14. It's actually really good, it lasts a long time. Pretty good stuff. I'm not marketing for anybody, I'm not marketing or telling anybody to go shop on Amazon, but I do get a lot of my material there. Preference, I like the 3M. Just from working in a body shop setting, the material is phenomenal. It's easy to work with. 3M Platinum Plus filler, although expensive, and I'm sure there's others better, it works best for me. 3M glaze, same thing. I prefer it. And that's just my preference, so that's what you'll see me using. The paint lines that I choose, it all depends on what the customer wants. I am not set on any one thing. If somebody wants something to sell, it's going to get a $100 gallon of clear. But in the defense of that, the high-tech 7100 clear has actually stood up pretty well on quite a few vehicles, and on black and red and a daily driven Camry that was a goldish gray. You know, it really is a good clear. I would put it on my own car, especially if it's going to be a daily driver and I wasn't too pressed. This one got a U-Pole or a Tamco clear, which, by the way, Tamco paints is actually really phenomenal, and they're not a sponsor, you can see, but that's who I like to use. That's the clear that's on this truck. I kind of got hooked on it, and it sprays great. It cuts great. It's been 5 or 6 days since I've actually sprayed the clear on this truck. Most of you guys know your high solids glamour clears, such as DCU 2021 or Concept 2021 or Global 8150. You know that you wait a few days on those and you may be cutting concrete. This stuff actually cuts really well. Again, I'm only putting fingertip pressure, just kind of keeping control of the block and letting it walk over. I'm not putting pressure on it. Sometimes this right here can get you in trouble, but again, I've done this enough where I know if I go too far, I'll be able to see it, and I should be able to stop at that moment. Otherwise, it'll be a disaster, and it is what it is. That's what happens. Sometimes stuff happens for some reason, and you just got to deal with it. When you're in the middle of painting, and let's say you're in your garage, one thing that I always say to keep, either keep a hair dryer for your wife or keep a heat gun in your shop. That can save your butt when you're painting. Take, for instance, you got a really humid day and you're starting to blow water out of your air lines. I've had it happen too. Keep a heat gun, because that heat gun will save you in the event some water blows out in your first coat of clear. You jump in there and you clear it out. You jump in there with a heat gun and keep it moving. Don't heat one place, but you keep it moving.